Connecting with purpose is about doing what matters most in a time when our families, workplaces, and communities need us. This show from PurposeFused presents honest conversations about what's possible when we invest in helping our people be their best, purposeful selves. You'll hear the challenges of making those investments and tips for reaping their rewards. This show is designed to help people-first leaders like you create the impact you seek. Let me introduce you to the purpose-driven and real-talking hosts, Mark, Neil, and Nell. Why the Connecting with Purpose show?
For me, a part of it is just honestly taking the BS out of purpose. What I mean by that is I feel like purpose became popularized largely in the marketing space. There's a lot of kind of marketing fads and retail gimmicks and even a lot of greenwashing going on. And I think for people like us that like truly believe in living and leading with purpose, it winds us up a little bit. So we wanted to call that out maybe a little bit, get some leaders that truly understand the value of purpose from an inside out kind of people focused approach, and how if you bring that support to your people and help them bring their purpose and align their purpose to their team, to the organization, to the objectives, it can make a massive impact. And that's what it should be about. And that's what we want to highlight in the show. So that for me is the calling out the BS and maybe highlighting a different way that actually purely works.
Totally. I think about it as like a bad news, good news situation. So, like Mark said, there is a lot more talk about purpose than there is intentional, authentic action. And, to really zoom out, what I see is a lot of bad news around the state of the world, war and environmental disaster and inequities and broadening gaps between what people have access to. And in the workplace, frankly, some really bad news, right? We're still really high levels of disengagement. It's not good for employers or employees, the way a lot of workplaces are running and operating. And the good news that we see in abundance as a privilege of what we do every day is that it's actually not that hard, right? It's pretty simple to do a lot of what we're doing. Not always easy, but if you intentionally spend some of the attention and the time and a bit of money to really help people as individuals understand when they're at their best, what excites them and the impact that can have on their worlds, a lot of things turn around. People are engaged, people are using their time in more efficient ways. They want to stick around at your company, even when there's tumult or uncertainty or layoffs. And so I think for us, it's the million viewer question of why this show is about spreading that good news of like, look, we've gotten a proven formula. It's actually not that hard if you're willing to just take some of the simple steps and kind of be human with your humans about this work.
I mean, for me, the show's about it's an opportunity to ask questions and hear responses and learn from the experiences of other people. Because I think I probably say every session we run, there's no right and no wrong. So let's just be mindful of the fact that different people have their different journey, and it's all relevant stuff. So let's just take the opportunity to ask questions and learn from each other. So, and if that provides some people some insight and some impetus to get on and integrate their own purpose in their own life in a certain way, great. That's what I think we're here for.
Why PurposeFused?
I just want to be doing what I choose to do with people that I want to work with that share the same sort of passionate approach to it. And also I wanted to be working in a way where I felt like I was being 100% authentic. And PurposeFused does that. I just took the best parts of my previous career and get to play with them, I guess, in PurposeFused. So that's why I do it.
I guess I've been pretty intentional for the last 17 years or so, from a career perspective, just trying to align that to my passions, to things that I really care about, things I believe in, and also to my kind of strengths and skills of things that I'm good at, and the things that I tend to enjoy, and doing that in a view to trying to make a difference, trying to make impact. And so for me, for a long time, it was with kids, with coaching kids. It's always been coaching, and facilitation has been a core theme. program design and curriculum development and training people has been a core theme. And so now I've taken those things through PurposeFused and delivering those with adults and leaders. Ultimately still about trying to optimize human potential, which is kind of the thread that's been there for the last 17 years for me.
In my case, I switched school districts when I was 12 years old, from a kind of inner city underfunded school to a really well-funded suburban public school system. And it was this really visceral illustration of the fact that talent is distributed equally, right? My classmates everywhere were awesome, smart, curious, creative kids, but opportunity is not. And that was really, that just felt suboptimal to my little 12-year-old brain. And so I spent the first 10 years of my career in the nonprofit space, working with youth leaders and activists and community leaders, refugees, which was amazing. But I also understood that I wasn't really making the systems level change that I wanted to be. And so about 12 or 14 years ago, shifted into doing really similar work, as Mark shared as well, around human potential, but with people in the corporate sector who had this massive ripple down effect through their teams and organizations and the economy.
How does your purpose drive your decisions?
The purpose itself is to use purpose to unlock people's potential, to optimize their performance impact. That's ultimately what we're here to do. And how we use that to guide our decisions is through how we apply it with who we choose to work with, where we feel that we can optimize the impact that we can have on those individuals, on those teams, on those organizations. And that then means aligning that to our skills, to our strengths, to our own passions, but also, just as importantly, working with people that truly believe in the potential of purpose and believe in the power of what we can achieve with them, in partnership with them. Are willing to invest in that and are willing to invest in our people on a very kind of holistic, fundamental, kind of foundational level to optimize the impact ultimately. And I think Nell can talk through kind of how we look at that kind of impact lens as well, to guide decisions.
Yeah. We think about and recommend that notion of kind of starting with the end in mind, right? And so obviously we're very impact driven. And when we think about that impact that we want to have as a result of the things we do, we use the me, we, and world dimensions. So there's a framework that comes up over and over and over internally as well as externally with partners. Just really thinking about, were we to do this thing, what will the impact be on me? And we use that in the sense of all the me's, right? So that's me and Neil and Mark. That's the individual humans that we're partnering with or could one day partner with. How's that going to be for our mental and physical well-being and our performance, which is ultimately what we're driving toward? And secondly, the we, how is this going to be for PurposeFused as an entity, right? For our team, what about for our families? Does it mean that we're traveling all the time or not? And then of course, what about for the teams that again, we support and partner with, or might one day partner with? What does it mean if we create an online tool? What does it mean if we deliver a program in a certain way? And then the world, right? So that bigger, broader range of people, environment, other communities that we all and our we's interact with. What's the impact going to be when we're really intentional about hiring an inclusive team with really diverse perspectives? What does that mean about the ripples that we're all able to have in that world?
It's worth saying, Nikki, I think we've all got our own personal purposes as well, which are complementary, which come together and show up in our sort of collective purpose, if you like. And mine's helping people focus on what really matters so they can build the future they want. If I'm able to do that, and we're working with people that, have their own version of their purpose, and they want to discover it and work with it and introduce it into their lives, then that's what we're here to do. And to impact that, performance and impact piece, which is what we've been talking about.
What will listeners gain from this experience?
I'd probably point to that a little bit, actually. An understanding of how those three words and that approach to purpose can have a fundamental difference on your people and on your business. And so the passion aspect of that's people listening to the show and feeling maybe refreshed, inspired, like energized, like they're excited, they want to move something forward. The impact side of it is looking at that me, we world and say, well, what's this mean for me what could this mean for my people? What could this mean for the world? Maybe I've got a broader and deeper perspective from having heard from some of these people and thinking through some of the problems that we have on a daily basis. And then the application piece of it is ultimately the whole thing has got to be practical. It's got to be for something you can take away on a day-to-day basis. As an individual, there might be 2 or 3 things you walk away with that you can test out. As a leader, maybe there's a small investment you can make in a team that just makes a fundamental difference to your business. Ultimately, application is about aligning those passions and those impacts to the objectives that you're trying to achieve and achieving them in the right way. And I think that's what people should hopefully take away from the show.
I think if there's one person that takes one thing from our podcast and does something positive, either for themselves or for other people, then that's one more positive thing happening, right? And that's a good outcome, and a takeaway for individual people that are listening to it, and a knock-on effect in terms of the me, we, world impact. So yeah, that's what I think people can get from it.
My individual purpose is around making work healthier and fairer by wrangling people, ideas, and horses, which is a separate episode. But I think to me, it's really about depressurizing. We talk about purpose pressure or purpose anxiety, and having worked in the nonprofit space with refugees and in very kind of urgent situations, I think people think of that as impact, right? It's like, I have to end hunger. I have to, fix racism in my town, like these really big, massive things. When in fact, as Mark said, it's these very practical, specific, or as Neil said, one thing that folks are doing differently. So, for us, I think when we see people repurpose 3 or 4 hours in their week away from doom scrolling toward mindful meals with their families, for example, right? Like, those are things that are very real and have those ripples out that, maybe then that family does actually volunteer at the food pantry that weekend. And that is their local contribution to ending hunger. But I think it's just about really bite-sized, tangible, repeatable habits that people can take away. And as leaders, to understand the power of doing that within your team. It's not about a whole reorg, right? Or some 6-figure investment in whatever a change might need to be. It's much more tactical and actionable than that.
How can listeners engage with the show?
To engage with the show, we'd ask people to come to the PurposeFused website, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next amazing episode. Comments, if you've got ideas on people that you've seen that have just been incredible leaders and really people forward, purposeful leaders, make an intro, make a suggestion. If there's something you'd like to hear from us, or a problem that you're dealing with very practically at work, tell us about it. We'll talk about that in one of our upcoming episodes. So we want it to be as interactive as possible, as helpful as possible at the end of the day. Like, we love doing this, but we want people to ultimately get actionable takeaways from engaged people are obviously the more you're going to get from it.
I think too, none of us are scared of conflict or pushback or critical engagement. So give us your pushback, right? We've heard plenty of purpose skepticisms before, or if you're not a purpose skeptic, maybe your CFO is. So drop those challenges and questions that you bump into. We're trying this, we really are earnest, and yet it's not working. We've seen a lot and a lot of very varied circumstances and team types and stages. So throw out your challenges. We love to solve a good problem.
We're energized about this journey and hope you choose to join us. Click the subscribe button now so you don't miss out on our first episode and all the actionable wisdom to come.